A new voice for IT Visionaries. His name is Chris Brandt. He's done some crazy stuff. He's built EMP-shielded data centers under mountains.
Believe it or not, 225 feet of mountain is not enough.
It's not enough.
To shield you from EMP.
And in the movies, if I have an EMP gun, I can turn off anything that runs on electricity. That's in the movies.
Well, and it's not too far off. We're entering a world right now where we're kind of running out of power, especially with this AI revolution that's happening so fast.
I was just reading about how the inability to make transformers fast enough is now the biggest bottleneck. And so this is like the ultimate constraint factor.
Where's that AI revolution to save us from the mundane tasks, right? We see all these image generation and creative writing tools coming out for AI, and that was the stuff that we're supposed to be doing, but it seems like now the AIs are doing the fun stuff and we're doing the busy work. It's a complicated process to use an AI effectively.
Chris, for yourself, what made you start wanting to interview these different people? Welcome everyone to another episode of IT Visionaries. And today I have a special guest. This is going to be a different episode. You've heard my voice for a long time, but I want to introduce a new voice. Welcome back to IT Visionaries. This is Albert Chou. If you've been listening for a long time, millions of listeners, millions of downloads later, I think we need a new host. That's just the way things go sometimes. It's meant a lot to me, but I wanted to take this time to introduce everyone to a new host, a new voice for IT Visionaries. His name is Chris Brandt. Some unique facts about Chris. Listen, he's got a background in tech much better than mine. He still has his fingers on the keyboard, whereas I took my fingers off my keyboard I want to say in 2017. So he's more up to date with technology. He's done some crazy stuff. Like, for example, he's built EMP-shielded data centers under mountains. Yeah. So me making little apps for Shopify doesn't even compare to his expertise. He's got a love of talking with innovators, and he's already got a show. So if you want to meet Chris even more, you can check him out on Future TV, FUTR.TV. Chris, welcome to IT Visionaries.
Well, I'm so excited this is so weird being on this side of, the interview. But I got to thank you for, carrying the IT Visionaries show on your shoulders for so many years and doing so many fantastic episodes. And I'm really excited to jump in and get going with this.
Yeah, listen, we over at Mission, we've always wanted to tell the best stories of tech leaders. And if you're listening now and you're wondering, hey, why am I stepping away? I just felt like over the years, me not being directly involved with technology, I was becoming, I think, a little distant from the projects that the current tech leaders are working on. The current problems they had, I didn't really fully, I wouldn't say experience, like I didn't fully experience what they were going through. I didn't remember what they were going through. Like I don't have an opinion right now on, adding AI agents to my tech workforce. These are things they're working on. I wasn't working on automation. These are things they're working on. And so I wanted to bring someone, and Mission wanted to bring someone on that's more involved with these problems that CIOs and CTOs are facing today. So Chris, let's start there. Because not just your show, of course, you've done shows, but let our audience know, what is it that your experience, your expertise, some of the projects you've worked on, because you've done some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, well, I'm out in the world working with the companies on their tech every day, so that's super helpful. And I totally agree with you. It's so hard to stay on top of it all if you're not out there doing it. And it changes so incredibly fast, especially now. I've never seen the tech landscape change faster than it has right now. You did mention, building an EMP-shielded data center 225 feet underneath a mountain in the middle of the mountains of Pennsylvania. That was a really exciting project. I used to be CTO of a mission critical, data center owner operator of a mission critical build facility. So we did really high security builds, kind of like SCIF kinds of builds, isolated kind of facilities. That one was really wild because it was under a mountain. They had, I think the facility itself was an acre beneath a mountain. It had its own zip code. It had its own fire department. It was absolutely wild. It was a former bug out place for Washington, D.C. But, we were working on some projects where the client needed EMP-shielded data center facilities. And believe it or not, 225 feet of mountain is not enough.
It's not enough.
To shield you from EMP. And for those who don't know what EMP is, that's electromagnetic pulse. So in particular, this client was concerned about solar flares.
And in the movies, if I have an EMP gun, I can turn off anything that runs on electricity. That's in the
Right.
movies.
Well, and it's not too far off. I mean, it's actually an enormous amount of energy that comes out because there's a thing in the upper atmosphere that happens that just produces an enormous like induction current, was basically, and it's well over a megawatt per square meter where it lands, and it can cover everything. It blows out all the electronics, and it's very hard to defend against, and it's not like a surge suppressor kind of thing. But this facility was absolutely amazing. Had a lake inside of the facility. That was the chilled water plant. It was a wild job, and I was working with a lot of like the NSA guys who were building other mystery facilities and heard about their EMP shielding experience on those. So it was a wild time. But I've been fortunate enough to do a lot of different projects. I mean, I've been in CIO CTO roles. I've run global networking. I've worked for Fortune 500s. I've done the startup thing. But even before that, I started off in marketing. I was an integrated marketer. So it's been a wild ride.
The projects that you would get to work on today, I mentioned before briefly that I did more consumer applications. I did work at an enterprise SaaS company for a while, but I didn't code anything there. But I understood what was going on and more of the project features requests. When I was in charge of IT Visionaries, I wanted to bring light to the everyday person and even non-technical people. So what I did was I kind of shied away from companies that built software for developers.
Right.
Companies like HashiCorp, where they're building software for software developers, but like a lot of people would never really see the outcome of that.
Right.
And so I wanted to make it more practical and real world because, truthfully, that was where I was. I was no longer in the game of software nearly as much. So I like to see the applications that were going to help me with my everyday life. And I always had a running joke throughout the show, but I don't want to hear another word about someone who's got like a filter system or a cool chat app. I was like, that's done to death. I don't see any transformative things in those arenas. But for yourself, what kind of flavor and twist do you think you want to bring to the show? Because I've been running it for so long, but I'm sure maybe some of my listeners are like, hey, I want to hear something different. So where do you like to lean? What are you most interested in? I'd love for our audience to know where your mind goes.
I always use the tagline. I like talking to cool people who are doing cool stuff, right? So that's really where my interests lie. I love the brilliant idea. That's what that really motivates me, and it can happen in so many different places. Sometimes you mentioned like HPC. I've worked on high performance computing projects, which are basically supercomputers. Those are like F1 cars. They're just super specialized, but the problems that happen at scale can be really, really fascinating. Like it really can turn things upside down. The things that, you would intuitively think about, like this is the way it must work, sometimes get inverted because at scale, things change dramatically. So I think that's kind of interesting, but I love the upstarts. I love the new companies that are bringing new tech to the world and doing, re-envisioning something in a very creative way. I love that kind of stuff. And I love stuff that's really going to help the world. Something that has like, some sustainability component, or, we're entering a world right now where we're kind of running out of power, especially with this AI revolution that's happening so fast.
I was just reading about how the inability to make transformers fast enough is now the biggest bottleneck in all innovation around the world. And so like, for example, if like a capacitor or a transformer blows, like you can't get one fast enough. And so like it's like, I read that the lead time is over a year right now, and it's expected to grow to 3 years in no time. And so like, this is like the critical, like the ultimate constraint factor, right? You just don't have enough electricity. Like that's what you
Totally. And when, we mentioned that EMP project, that's one of the problems, because there's 3 phases of an EMP. And the third one is where it blows out all the long haul transformers. And that's what people don't realize, that the recovery from something like that, it was at least a year back then for those big transformers. And now it's even worse. So there's like critical parts of the infrastructure that you just can't build quickly, like say nuclear facilities, which we're, really bringing back online. So, that then says, okay, we can do only so much with renewables in that amount of time. So we've really got to make our infrastructure much more efficient. So like driving down the power consumption of all our devices and things like that, or better utilizing that power is going to be really critical coming up. So I love that kind of stuff. I love, alternate energy sources, different ways to deliver sources. Delivering energy to the edge too is super cool too, because, bringing the compute power, closer to where it's happening is also a big part of it too. So there's so many cool things happening now. And we haven't even touched on, what's going on in the world of AI, for example, really, which is wild.
Yeah, everyone's talking about AI, but I think what you just said earlier is actually what is really going to happen, which is the ability to, let's say, develop applications, to the ability to close the gap in your learning curve. So, for example, you might be a front end person, you're not sure how to set up your database. Well, you can. It doesn't take but a handful of prompts before you can get, let's say, a functional database going.
Yeah.
And what you're going to see is, because I'm watching it, one of my good buddies who I'm working with right now is in a ticketing company, and they help price. And so when people hear pricing of tickets, they only think the bad side, which is, oh, they're going to increase the prices. But there's actually the side that benefits consumers too, because when artists overprice tickets and they don't sell, they actually just cancel the tour.
Right.
They don't want to play or cancel the show. They don't want to play to, let's say, empty house. But watching those developers develop with an AI agent next to them is incredible. It's incredible. Watching like 3 guys that are already good developers, but also now every question that they have, every roadblock they hit, they can have an AI check on it. Writing and helping develop testing scripts for their own code or each other's code is faster than ever. So I think, to what you're talking about, the startups, but people that are going to have ideas that maybe they didn't have the expertise to put it together, or they couldn't get funding. You can name a lot of reasons why their idea couldn't come to fruition. The chances of them coming to fruition now is just much greater. So you're going to see, like, let's see, a better supply of better startups doing bigger things.
Yeah, and it's not just that. I mean, like, even, there's a lot of software development and things like that it's really empowering and enabling. But I mean, like, beyond that, there's so many opportunities to, like, if you want to build a chip nowadays, it's not like you have to build a whole chip fab. You can just go and get chips made. Things that were just completely unachievable years ago, you can just get made on a almost bespoke basis now. And so if you're creating a new product, innovating in a new area from both the hardware and the software side, you can do amazing things. And we're definitely seeing the rise of that. And it's totally wild. And it changes so fast. And I think that's what our role here is, right? It's these things are moving really fast. I always used to say, like, every year I, get a new job, because, like, the industry changes so much, but now it's like every 3 months, 6 months, I'm getting a new job because it's completely changing. I mean, like, 4 years ago, we weren't having the kinds of conversations that we're having right now, about AI and, like AI writing all this code and all that stuff. I mean, it's a wild time we're living through. And I think the change is so rapid. Most people are having a hard time wrapping their head around it. That's why I'm excited to have these conversations, because I want to learn more. I want the audience to learn more. Let's talk to cool people who are right in the middle of doing it. It's exciting.
No doubt about it. When you were talking about that, I was thinking about my own utilization of Zapier, and how at first it was already a lot easier to use, but now I'm using prompt engines and getting help support I was like, man, I wonder if I could just sell my time as a Zapier consultant, because I've now put together so many different Zaps.
Well, prompt engineering is a real job these days.
Yeah, I know. But I was like, why don't I just go straight to prompt engineering? Because why limit myself to just Zapier?
Well, I mean, you can use AI to generate prompts too. So there's that.
I just keep telling my kids, you have to be smart enough to recognize that when the AI is wrong. Because I did have an AI, for example, I wanted to calculate how many calories I burned in a workout I did. And I caught it. It made a mathematical error, and I caught it.
Yeah, they're not great at math. They're a little math challenge.
That was surprising. I think that's what was surprising, because I said I did 8 500-meter interval rows, and it takes me about 2 minutes to row each 500. And I weigh this much, and I also did this and that, and they calculated up the time, and then told me I did 8 minutes of work. I was like, no, I did 8 rounds of 500, which takes 2 minutes, which is 16 minutes. Like, oh yeah, I see my mistake, and it gave me a number for the calorie burn, but then I lost all trust in it, and I was like, I don't know if this is right.
Yeah, well, I mean, the first thing I'm going to say is like you're not going to get the level of fitness with your previous host with this new host and me. So I'm not doing that many rows that fast. But yeah, you're right. I mean, like I was just working on a white paper around cybersecurity, and I was utilizing AI to help me do a lot of research, and the kind of prompt engineering that you have to do to get it to not basically make stuff up is really challenging, and you have to go through and you have to verify and validate every link, and it's complicated too, because sometimes the LLMs are trained on data that may not be available any longer on the internet, or it may have come from a source that you don't have access to. So it's hard to sometimes even validate legitimate claims that it can make. So you really have to do your digging, and sometimes it's hard to find alternate sources to give you the kind of answer that you're looking for. It's wild, and it's a complicated process to use an AI effectively. And that's why it's interesting. I think, the liberal arts majors are the ones that seem to be winning in that battle, because they have the sort of wide array of knowledge to sort of put the prompts together and then, validate them too.
I'll tell you what, it's been said. I think multiple leaders have talked about like, hey, you shouldn't learn how to, I wouldn't say learn how to code, but they say it, you don't want to learn how to code. You want to learn, I don't know, all these other different things. I don't know exactly what to bet on. So I just tell my son, the first steps first is like, just master every subject you can, because you're not going to go wrong knowing something.
Or get really good at doing things with your monkey hands, because AIs aren't good at having monkey hands to fix things.
I know I am very fascinated by blue collar businesses, and I've been reading Main Street Millionaire by Cody Sanchez. And like, I just want to buy one of these things.
Yeah, where's that AI revolution to save us from the mundane tasks, right?
It's not here yet. It's definitely not here yet.
Well, there's that whole thing about how, we see all these image generation and, creative writing tools coming out for AI. And that was the stuff that we're supposed to be doing, because now we have all this free time because all that busy work has been taken care of by AIs for us. But it seems like now the AIs are doing the fun stuff and we're doing the busy work. So I'm not sure how we're winning in that equation at this point.
Well, I have a feeling that, so this is, of course, we're straying off tech. This is more like philosophical and societal,
sure.
But which is fine, because I'm more interested in that stuff anyways. But I think people are always going to gravitate towards, when it comes to entertainment, people are always going to gravitate towards probably some level of novelty, some level of uniqueness. And so over time, what's going to happen is, this is so new to humans, right? So we've seen it.
For sure.
We might like it for whatever period of time, but eventually someone's going to come up with a story that's super unique. And that will, once again, pull people away. And the gravitational pull of entertainment is always going to be there. People are always going to want an escape. People are always going to want to read or hear about things that they've never heard of or seen before. And so I think that's going to always be there. I don't think AI is going to ruin creatives. I think it's going to definitely diminish the amount of people that can make a living in the creative spaces, but I don't think it's going to diminish like actual creativity. I don't know how to best explain. I'll give you examples like the Marvel movies, right? Like when we first saw them, we loved them. Like, this is the coolest thing ever. But now Marvel's in like flop after flop after, flop, but they're not making as much money anymore.
No.
So it's like, people are they're tired of seeing it a little bit. They want to see something else.
Yeah, well, I think CGI is a great example of this, right? When we looked at older movies that these great, cool, super amazing special effects came out, and we were like, oh wow, that's amazing. And now you look back on them and you're like, wow, that is so janky. How did we think that was good? And you kind of get into that uncanny valley kind of thing. And I think AI has a similar problem, right? I always say, when you look at, like a picture of a woman, for example, it's like they're a blonde woman that sort of resembles Margot Robbie. It's like, it's like they're culling the images from what's popular on the internet. And so if you have an overabundance of a certain type of image, it's really hard to get past that. And I think the writing's the same way. You start seeing patterns in writing where you're like, oh, this is totally AI.
Or worse yet, it's not. It's an actual person that.
And then that's really terrible, right? That's even worse.
That's how they learn to write. It's like, oh, dang, sorry.
No, but there was an interesting example too with watch faces. So like if you try to get a watch face at at a certain time. It's almost impossible because all the watch faces were always set. I think it's like 11:10 or something, or 10:10 in all the pictures because it looks best that way.
Yeah. I've seen that.
And so if you try to generate an AI image, it always comes out at 10:10 because that's what it's referencing. So it doesn't know how to move the hands around to different places. So, we're already living in that uncanny valley. We just don't know it.
All ideas, when they first are said to somebody, by the way, they all sound stupid. Every one of them. Like every idea, until you see it, sounds dumb. I think so. And that's why there's like this adage like, hey, don't worry about sharing your idea. No one's gonna think it's good anyways. I always use in creative works my example of SpongeBob SquarePants. Like, does anyone really believe that they were pitched a story before you ever saw it? You know what I mean? I got a character.
Yeah.
It's a sponge. It's a what? Yeah, his name's Bob. Who's his best friend? It's a starfish named Patrick. Where do they live? In a pineapple under, like, no one's like, no, that sounds great. That sounds like a great idea.
The Krabby Burgers or whatever that.
I think back to like eBay, when people are like, oh, it's going to be a marketplace where people send you stuff. And I'm like, who's to enforce them to send me the thing that they said they had for sale? Like, they're just going to do it.
Yeah.
Honor code. I'm like, wow.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's the nature of innovation. That's why I love talking to these people, because it's really about seeing a problem that nobody else sees. And I had a customer one time. I used to take customers out to Silicon Valley to talk to the venture capital groups and meet with their portfolio companies, to just kind of get a pulse of the industry and what's going on. And he said something very insightful. He said, I didn't know I had the problem until I saw the solution. And, which is something that Steve Jobs kind of said too. He's like, a lot of times people don't know they need something until you show it to them. Right. Yeah. And it's totally true. I mean, like back in the day, I never thought I needed all this tech. I didn't need the world's, Google, world's database, collective intelligence in my pocket at all times. I mean, now I can't live without it, So it takes that kind of really insightful vision to really step out of yourself and see what could be.
Chris, for yourself, what made you start Future TV? What made you start wanting to interview these different people? Because you can meet people without a podcast too, but
yeah, you can. It turns out it's a great way to do it, though.
Yeah.
Well, and it's funny too, because I've made friends with so many of the guests, and I'm still in touch with a lot of people, and like I've just both professionally and personally interacted with them after the podcast. So that's been really fantastic. But really, what started it, I had for my customers that I started off long ago, like I would go to trade shows and things like that, and people wouldn't, get a chance to go to them because it's expensive, it's time consuming, things like that. So I kind of go and interview people at the booths and at the shows and get a flavor for things and kind of bring that back and show them and things like that. And, so that's kind of how I got my loose start at it. And then I was planning, I was working on an event here where I live in Chicago area, did a buyout on the City Winery. We were going to have a big tech event, and it was, we had 3 VCs sponsoring it. And I think we had 25 different portfolio companies that were coming. And that was scheduled for, I believe, April 29th of 2020. So if you can imagine what was happening on April 29th of 2020, that was not a good time to have a tech conference, right?
No, it was not.
We're like, well, let me think about this. Like, why don't I just start interviewing these people, like do the virtual kind of version and do a podcast with all these people who are going to be at this thing. And then that kind of, it started there and just really grew and expanded. And, it's funny when you do a podcast because, everybody says, well, it's going to take you a little while to find your voice, and like what you're good at talking about, how to talk about it, how to interview people, do this, that, and thing. And it did. It took a while, and it was a great experience to sort of hone those skills and then find the kind of subject matter that really stuck and was interesting, and the things that really compelled me. And it's been a really wild, fun journey. I mean, I've loved some of the episodes that I've done, and some of the people that I've talked to are just wild.
Well, we hope to continue that train of strong guests.
Yeah.
The Mission brand has helped us get a lot of people that, that I personally never thought they would say yes. So I think that you're going to see hopefully that same experience. One of the things that also I want to do for the listeners, long-term listeners, I I always bring my personal life into the show. I talk about family. I talk about my love of surfing. Talk about my love of sports, which definitely is not IT Visionaries related, but I just kind of like talking about it because that's who I am. Go Gators, just won the national championship. Yeah, I went to UF for a year.
There you go. There you go. Congratulations.
Yeah, specifically for the purpose of cheering on the team. Not an academic decision at all. That was just that reason. But for yourself, what do you, when you're not working on tech, are you one of those people that you build and do things on your own anyway? What do you do outside of like your regular day of work? Because you still are actively in the game.
It's a lot of things. My hobby is collecting hobbies. So I've done a lot of things. I've got a lot of, stuff in closets too, so there's that. And the latest thing, I'm building, breadboarding electronics and things like that these days, which is super nerdy, but I'm a guitar player. So I've been building, guitar pedals and things like that. So that's been a thing. There's
the neck of my guitar right there.
There you go. Yeah. Well, maybe I'll have to send you some pedals. What are you missing?
Oh, that's only an acoustic. I don't have.
Oh, well,
yeah, it doesn't
have. There's stuff for acoustics too. Are you kidding me? What are you talking about? We can solve that problem right away. Yeah, no, I mean, like I've reached that point in my life where I'm playing pickleball now. I was down for a bit where I'm like, pickleball injury.
Big athlete guy now. Yeah,
it's a great sport. I just there's a national pickleball league, and I interviewed a team owner recently. And it was wild. There's like a whole bunch of stuff going on in the world's fastest growing sport, which I encourage you to get involved with.
So the owner of pickleball, all the leagues in like pickleball.com is Tom Dundon. He was one of the lead investors in like Top Golf.
Yeah.
So like he knows entertainment.
Yeah, no, these guys. Well, I mean, the guy who's I talked to, like it's all those big sports guys like LeBron James and folks like Kevin Garnett. All those guys are like they have pickleball teams. But the funniest one, this team, the Texas Ranchers, is partly owned by Lil Wayne.
Okay.
Right. I mean, like, and apparently Lil Wayne he got into it because Lil Wayne broke his ankle playing pickleball, I guess. And so,
I know he's an avid skateboarder too.
Yeah. I mean, but like Lil Wayne and pickleball. I mean, like my daughter, like her head almost exploded when I said that because I'm like, because I'm always like, you got to come play pickleball. She's like, that's for old people. She's 19. I'm like, and I'm like, well, hey, Lil Wayne's got his own pickleball team. She's like, oh my God, I've got to start playing pickleball now.
Lil Wayne's pretty old though, because he was like 18 when I was 18.
He's in the demographic. He's in that demographic for sure.
He's not a young guy anymore.
Yeah, that's what my daughter said. She's like, well, he's kind of getting up there. So that's and man, they cut you loose so quick when they're young like that, right? You just get so old. Yeah, no, I mean, I've for a while, and I'm going to get back to it. I had an injury, but I shoot Olympic style recurve archery. The one with the big poles coming out of the bows and all that stuff.
I know exactly what you're talking about because my son's into that right now, and my wife's been dragged into it too because she's taking him. So my middle son, Laird. So yeah, she does the archery too. Not me, but that's awesome.
I love things that are sort of a combination of engineering and skill.
Yeah.
And that's definitely one because like tuning your bow, tuning your arrows, like figuring out the flight of the arrow and, all that stuff. And it's a very complicated thing when you're shooting long distances with a bow and arrow. And I like the recurve because it's not as easy to hit a target as is with a compound bow. So that's
what I've been told. It's a much more skill game.
Well, I would say they're both skill games because the level of precision in compound is just ridiculous. So like when differentiating from other people, you have to be the best of the best to do that. It just it looks prettier when you shoot a compound. It goes all straight in the middle.
Listen, you're a man of many hobbies, so I think this is perfect, right? You're deeper in the game. You are currently fingers on the keyboard, helping build applications or setting up infrastructure with clients. I think you're going to mesh very well with the guests that are going to be on the show. You have plenty of interests outside of tech. I always I always think to myself, I don't want to hear just one subject. There's a reason why we had a couple episodes ago on Mission Daily, we said we wanted a new host. We were happy to meet with all the different super qualified people. But Chris, I think you're current experience, in addition to the hobbies outside of what you currently do, made you we're guessing you're going to be a great fit. And so this is going to be an awesome thing. IT Visionaries is going to be now hosted by Chris Brandt. Chris, what do you have to say to the people that are listening right now? Like I mentioned before, the show was at 1 million downloads a year. It's pretty exciting. They're stoked to hear you. What do you guys say to them?
I'm super excited to be here. I'm excited to, like talk to a new audience. That's super fun. I'm excited with the organization here too, because it's like, it's behind the scenes, which is really cool. There's like a whole group of people, doing this, and there's collaboration and discussion and, all those fun things. And it's super exciting to do that. And obviously, like I'm building on, such a great base that, you built, and I'm super grateful for that. And it's going to be really, really fun. I mean, let's talk to cool people doing cool stuff, right?
Listen, my one tip I have for you that I learned from my hundreds of episodes is don't invest right away in your guests, meaning some of your guests are going to be from companies that are about to IPO or recently IPO'd. And just because something is technologically superior doesn't mean people are going to buy it in mass. And so I learned that the hard way.
Well, and just because somebody has a good idea doesn't mean it's a good market fit either. I mean, that's
right.
That's the other thing too, is like figuring out what's the good product market fit. Is it the right team of people? I mean, from evaluating all these startups over the years, it's really about the people. It's not always about the idea. You have to have a good idea, but it's the people, the marketing, the sales that all make the engine go. And so those are all really interesting topics when you talk about, startup companies and how people make it all come together to be a really viable product. So it's cool.
Yes. I used to keep what I called my angel list, meaning like, hey, if I was an angel, would I put money behind that? And I used to keep that. And I used to think to myself, if I'm right more often than I'm wrong, I'm going to publish it. But I was definitely more wrong than right. And so I also didn't want to call out people, I didn't want to make people feel bad. Like they already have their bad news, right? Like I don't need to pile on.
Well, there's a lot of external factors involved. I mean, as you can see with the economy today, I mean, there's
it's a challenging
you can pick
game.
the best company and it still might, fail you.
To the people that have been listening, thanks for following along all these years. It was eye-opening. That's my favorite way to say it, is like, it was always eye-opening in my opinion to hear about the problems that people were attempting to solve. And they made my daily work sound so small.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like these guys
sure.
are solving like massive problems. Some stories I think that I'll always remember are, I'm just going to name some people. The chief technology officer of MailChimp, Eric Muntz, he's no longer there, but he admitted how he shipped code that like basically took down MailChimp, right? And so he was willing to say like, he was willing to be vulnerable. Of course, meeting DHH, which is like, he's a hero of mine, mainly because of his contrarian thinking. That was a cool moment in time for me.
Yeah.
If you want to listen back, this was not on IT Visionaries, but it was another mission podcast. I got to meet someone memorable. Was Henry Schuck. He's the CEO of ZoomInfo. And he told a really cool story about acquiring ZoomInfo, because his company was not called ZoomInfo. It was called discovery.org or Discover.org.
Yeah.
And we were a subscriber of them like a long, long time ago at one of my previous companies. And just his story of how he made decisions like to do all these different things to now become the leader was just always, I think, very egoless is where I would say it. I don't know him personally, but like he always put like the problem first, like the solution first, therefore the solution first.
Yeah.
And his story about saying like, I said, why did you rename the company? Because Discover.org acquired ZoomInfo. Like you were a bigger company than ZoomInfo. And he said the name was better. Like, so like, I don't think people listening realize at like big companies, how much people love name, branding, recognition, like all these things. Like it feels like this is your history. So for the acquiring company to take the name of the thing they acquired, you know what I mean? When Delta took over Northwest, they didn't change their airline to Northwest Airlines. They said it's Delta, and you can find this over and over again. They said, no, ZoomInfo is a better name. And so like his ability to make these decisions in an egoless way lets you know, like he's always going to be at the top of his game. It's going to be hard to knock him off.
Yeah, no, I've had a similar experience. I mean, I've interviewed, everybody from John Thompson when he was the chairman of the board of Microsoft to, like the Bipul Sinhas of the world who, took Rubrik public. And so, I mean, you just never know where things are going to take you, It's wild.
There you go. Well, listen, everyone. Once again, my name's Albert, signing off for the final time. Chris.
Signing on and then signing off.
I'm tagging you in.
Yeah, I'm super excited and looking forward to bringing great content to everybody and looking forward to great guests and, keep listening, keep watching, and, we'll see you in the next one.
Thanks, everybody.